United Airlines Flight 2321989, a tale of heroism amidst disaster. On a warm summer afternoon in July 1989, United Airlines Flight 232 took off from Denver, Colorado, bound for Chicago, Illinois. It was an ordinary flight aboard a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, with 296 passengers and crew enjoying a routine journey. However, a catastrophic mechanical failure soon turned it into one of the most harrowing aviation incidents in history. But midway through the flight at 3,700 feet, the unthinkable happened. The tail-mount engine, known to, experienced a catastrophic failure. The engine disintegrated violently, causing pieces of shrapnel to sever the aircraft's hydraulic lines. This devastating event rendered the plane's flight control systems inoperable, leaving Captain Al Haynes and his crew with a near-impossible challenge: how to control an uncontrollable aircraft. With no hydraulic systems, the crew discovered they could maneuver the DC-10 by adjusting the thrust of the remaining two engines. This ad hoc method of steering was unprecedented and extremely difficult to execute. Every decision, every second. The situation on board was tense, but orderly, thanks to the exceptional leadership of the crew and the calm professionalism of the flight attendants. Passengers were briefed on the emergency, and the cabin braced for what would inevitably be a perilous landing. The plane approached the runway at an awkward angle, wobbling uncontrollably. Despite the crew's heroic efforts, the DC-10 crash-landed, cartwheeling and bursting into flames. The impact was catastrophic, yet amidst the wreckage, stories of survival and bravery emerged. Out of the 296 souls on board, 184 survived, thanks in large part to the quick thinking of the crew and the coordinated efforts of first responders. The crash of Flight 232 highlighted the importance of crew resource management, a principle that was instrumental in saving so many lives that day. It also underscored the critical need for better fail-safes in aircraft hydraulic systems. The crash of Flight 232 highlighted the importance of crew resource management, a principle that was instrumental in saving so many lives that day. It also underscored the critical need for better fail-safes in aircraft hydraulic systems. Survival continues to inspire and teach valuable lessons in aviation safety and crisis management. United Airlines Flight 2321989, the fight for survival. A routine flight takes off. July 19, 1989, United Airlines Flight 232 departed from Denver's Stapleton International Airport en route to Philadelphia, with a scheduled stop in Chicago. The aircraft, a McDonnell Douglas DC-10, was a trusted workhorse of the skies. On board were 296 individuals, 285 passengers including children, and 11 crew members. The flight crew was experienced and well-trained. Captain Al Haynes, with over 300 flight hours, led the team. First Officer William Records and Flight Engineer Dudley Dvorak, both highly skilled, rounded out the cockpit crew. Below deck, a highly trained cabin crew prepared for what was expected to be another smooth cross-country flight. The takeoff was uneventful, and the plane climbed to its cruising altitude of 3,700 feet. Passengers settled into their routines, some reading, others napping, and children playing in their seats. It was a calm and sunny day, with no hint of the disaster looming ahead. The catastrophic engine failure. Roughly 1 hour into the flight, as the DC-10 cruised over Iowa, disaster struck. A loud explosion shattered the calm. Passengers near the rear of the aircraft reported feeling a violent jolt, followed by a sudden drop in cabin pressure. The aircraft shook violently as debris from the tail-mount No. 2 engine rained down over the Iowa countryside. Unbeknownst to the crew at the time, the No. 2 engine had experienced an uncontained failure. A critical titanium fan disc within the engine had fractured due to undetected fatigue cracks, causing it to disintegrate. Shrapnel from the explosion severed all 3 hydraulic systems, which were vital for controlling the aircraft. In the cockpit, Captain Haynes and his team quickly realized the severity of the situation. The DC-10's flight controls, ailerons, rudder, and elevators were completely unresponsive. They were flying a crippled aircraft, and standard procedure offered no solutions for such a scenario. Inventing a way to steer. With no hydraulics to rely on, the crew discovered that they could control the aircraft, albeit with great difficulty, by varying the thrust on the 2 remaining wing-mount engines. By increasing thrust on one side and reducing it on the other, they could turn the plane slightly. However, this makeshift steering method was imprecise and required constant adjustments. Captain Haynes later described the situation as like trying to drive a car with only the accelerator and no steering wheel. The plane weaved and wobbled erratically, making it nearly impossible to maintain a straight path. Meanwhile, the flight attendants worked tirelessly to prepare the passengers for an emergency landing. They instructed everyone to brace for impact, ensuring that even the youngest passengers knew what to do. The crew's calm demeanor inspired confidence, preventing widespread panic. The desperate approach to Sioux City. Air Traffic Control, ATC, was alerted to the emergency, and nearby Sioux Gateway Airport in Sioux City, Iowa, was designated as the emergency landing site. Firefighters, paramedics, and other first responders rushed to the airport, preparing for what would undoubtedly be a catastrophic landing. As the DC-10 approached Sioux City, the situation became even more dire. The plane descended too quickly and struggled to align with the runway. The crew fought to maintain control, but the loss of hydraulics meant they had little influence over the plane's altitude and direction. The crash landing. At 4 p.m., Flight 232 came into view of the airport. Witnesses on the ground described the plane as wobbling like a leaf in the wind. The right wing dipped as the plane descended, and the aircraft slammed into the ground short of the runway. The impact was devastating. The plane cartwheeled and broke apart, bursting into flames as fuel ignited. Thick black smoke billowed into the sky, visible for miles around. Emergency crews, who had been positioned strategically around the airport, sprang into action immediately. Heroism in the wreckage. Amid the wreckage, stories of heroism and survival emerged. Many passengers helped each other escape the burning fuselage, and the flight attendants, many of whom were injured, worked tirelessly to guide survivors to safety. Despite the chaos, the rescue efforts were remarkably effective. Out of the 296 people on board, 184 survived, including Captain Haynes and the majority of the flight crew. Tragically, 112 lives were lost, including some who initially survived the crash but succumbed to injuries later. The aftermath and legacy. The investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB) determined that the fan disc failure was due to a manufacturing defect that had gone undetected during maintenance. The incident prompted significant changes in aviation safety regulations, including stricter inspections for engine components and enhanced hydraulic system redundancy. The crew of Flight 232 was widely praised for their extraordinary skill and teamwork under impossible circumstances. Captain Haynes credited crew resource management (CRM) training, a relatively new concept at the time, for their ability to collaborate effectively